at you! Ordinary cleaner, feeding street beggars during work.
You stole that bread! Somebody on your salary cannot afford kindness.
The loaf hit the marble floor before Nneka could catch it. Halima's heel crushed the nylon beside her fingers. "Look at you," she shouted across the luxury lobby. "Ordinary cleaner, feeding street beggars during work. Is this place your family compound?" Laughter broke out. Phones came up. Whale tore Nneka's staff card from her neck and raised it like evidence. "You stole that bread," he said. "Somebody on your salary cannot afford kindness." Nneka's eyes burned, but she did not rise. She reached for the receipt in her pocket. The old woman beside her tried to speak. "She bought it for me." Halima stared at her faded wrapper. "Security, remove both of them before our real guests arrive." Then engines growled outside. One black SUV stopped, then another, then 4 more. Men in dark suits rushed toward the entrance. The managers, who had been laughing suddenly, stood straight. Do not miss what happened when the first passenger stepped out. Tell us your city and local time in the comments. And subscribe now. Because this loaf was about to expose something far bigger than hunger. 40 minutes earlier, Nneka Bello had been inside the women's changing room, tying a mustard yellow apron over her deep teal uniform. The room was hardly a changing room anymore. 3 cartons of industrial bleach blocked one wall. A broken floor machine leaned against the lockers. 2 plastic buckets sat upside down beneath a leaking pipe, catching brown drops that fell with the patience of a clock. Plop, plop, plop. Nneka checked the time on her small phone. 8:07 a.m. Her shift had officially started 7 minutes earlier. But Wale Nwasu had ordered the cleaners to arrive by 7:30 without recording the extra time. He called it professional readiness. The workers called it free labor. Nneka pressed her thumb against the cracked screen and opened the note where she kept her hours. July 13. Arrived 7:28. Shift began 8 set. No gloves issued. She added another line. July 14. Arrived 7:31. Shift began 8. Storerooms still locked. No masks. Are you writing again? A tired voice asked. Nneka turned. A cleaner in the same uniform stood by the door, rubbing cream into fingers that had become dry from chemicals. Her name did not matter to the managers. Most of them simply called all the women cleaner. "The thing is helping me remember," Nneka said. "Remember what? How many hours they owe us." The woman laughed without joy. "My sister, if remembering could bring salary, all of us would be millionaires." Nneka smiled faintly, but she did not close the note. Her salary for June had entered 16 days late. Even then, it was short by 27,000 naira. The payslip said the deductions covered a new uniform, safety training, replacement gloves, and transport. Nneka had received one faded uniform from a woman who resigned. There had been no training. The gloves tore before the end of each shift. Transport was not provided. She had complained to the site supervisor. The supervisor told her to be grateful that she had work. She complained to ClearPath's payroll number. Nobody answered. She sent an email. The message came back with an automatic reply saying the matter had been closed. That was when she started writing. Not because she planned to fight anybody. Nneka was not foolish. A woman who had rent to pay did not go about fighting men who controlled her salary. She wrote because numbers behaved better than people. A number could be checked. A date could be compared. A receipt could refuse to lie even when mouths became expensive. She slipped the phone into her pocket and picked up a pair of gloves from her locker. There was a hole beside the right thumb. She turned it over. The left palm had split too. "Madam Halima is coming for inspection," the other cleaner said. Whale said, "Everywhere must shine like heaven." Nneka looked at the leaking pipe. Even heaven will complain if they give angels these gloves. The woman covered her mouth, laughing for real this time. Please do not let Whale hear you. I know. Nneka knew very well. Wale Nwosu, the director of ClearPath Facility Services, had built his authority on fear. He did not shout all the time. Sometimes he spoke softly, which was worse. When Wale lowered his voice, somebody usually lost a shift. His company supplied 47 cleaners to Crestline Galleria, one of the most expensive mixed-use complexes in Ikeja. The contract covered wages, uniforms, protective equipment, training and transport allowance. On paper, everything was complete. On the floor, workers borrowed money to come to work. Nneka took her mop cart toward the service corridor. As she passed the supply cage, she saw 3 men loading sealed cartons of cleaning chemicals onto a trolley. She knew the brand. They were the premium disinfectants meant for the service departments. "Where are those ones going?" she asked. The store assistant avoided her eyes. "Another floor." "Which floor?" "Are you the store manager?" Nneka said nothing. One carton had a small blue sticker with the handwritten code CL37TZN. She had recorded that code 2 days earlier when Whale claimed the entire shipment had not arrived. She pulled out her phone after turning the corner. July 14, 8:19. 3 cartons premium disinfectant. Code CL317. Moved through loading corridor. She saved it. Then she heard heels behind her. Sharp, fast, important. Nneka, she turned at once. Hazaima Ize approached in an electric magenta suit that looked almost too bright beneath the white lobby lights. Her black heels struck the floor as if the marble owed her money. A tablet rested against one arm. Behind her walked Whale in a cobalt blue suit and scarlet tie. They looked like 2 people dressed for a television interview. Nneka looked like what they stepped around. "Why is your trolley here?" Halima demanded. "I am moving to the east lobby, Ma." "Then move. Do you not understand that residents are already coming down?" "Yes, Ma, and tuck in that apron." "This is Crestline, not a roadside buka." Nneka adjusted it. Halima's eyes traveled to the worn gloves. "What is that disgrace on your hands?" "The new stock has not been issued, Ma." Whale smiled quickly. "It has been issued. She is one of those careless staff who lose company property." Nneka looked at him. "Sir, we signed the form, but they did not give us." "Did I ask you to speak?" Whale said. His voice was low. The other cleaners nearby bent their heads. Halima tapped her tablet. "We have a major guest coming this morning. Mrs. Okafor will inspect the employee welfare presentation before the contract review. I will not allow dirty uniforms and village behavior to embarrass this facility." Whale nodded. "Everything is under control. It had better be. The ClearPath renewal is on my desk." Whale's smile tightened. "Of course." Halima walked away, leaving the smell of expensive perfume in the corridor. Whale waited until she entered the lift. Then he stepped closer to Nneka. "Why do you like putting your mouth inside matters that do not concern you? I only explained about the gloves. You contradicted me in front of the client." "I told the truth." Whale's eyes became still. "Truth does not pay salary. People pay salary." Nneka held his gaze for 1 second, then she lowered it. "Yes, sir." He leaned closer. "If this contract fails, all 47 of you will go home. Remember that before you start displaying your education." He walked away. Nneka gripped the mop handle. She had heard that sentence before. Displaying your education. Whale used it whenever she asked about overtime, tax deductions, or payslips. She had completed a national diploma in office technology 4 years earlier. She had worked as a receptionist until the company closed. Since then, she had sold phone cards, typed church programs, kept records for a pharmacy, and cleaned offices. She never felt ashamed of the mop. She felt ashamed of people who believed the mop cancelled her mind. By 8:35, the east lobby was shining. Sunlight passed through the glass entrance and spread across the marble. A floral arrangement stood beneath a brass clock. Soft instrumental music floated from hidden speakers. Nobody looking at Crestline Galleria would imagine that the people who made it shine ate beside the waste bay, because their restroom had become a chemical store. Nneka was wiping fingerprints from a glass panel when an elderly woman entered through the side door. She wore a burnt orange Ankara wrapper, a deep indigo blouse and flat sandals. An ivory scarf covered part of her grey hair. She carried a leather handbag that was old but carefully maintained. The woman paused after entering. Her hand touched the wall. Nneka watched her face. Not confusion, weakness. The woman breathed slowly, then continued toward the food hall. Nneka returned to the glass. She had been warned not to stare at customers. 10 minutes later, she saw the same woman standing at the bakery counter. The cashier pushed a card machine toward her. Declined. Ma. Try it again, the woman said. The cashier did. The machine beeped. Still declined. The woman opened her bag and searched inside. I thought I had some cash. Madam, please stand aside. People are waiting. There were only 2 people behind her, but the cashier was already squeezing her face. I need the bread before my medicine, the woman said. Let me call my assistant. Her phone lit for 1 second and went black. Battery, she murmured. The cashier pulled the loaf away. Next person. Nneka felt something move inside her. She looked toward the lobby. No Halima, no wail. She left her trolley by the wall and walked to the counter. Mama, are you all right? The woman turned. I am managing my daughter. Have you eaten anything since morning? Not yet. Nneka looked at the loaf. It cost 3,850 naira. The bottled water cost 900. Nneka had 5,200 naira in her account. That money was meant for transport home and a small bowl of rice during her break. She could walk part of the way. She had done it before. Please add the water, Nneka told the cashier. The cashier looked at her uniform. Are you paying? Yes. Nneka tapped her phone against the terminal. Approved. She took the receipt and folded it into the pocket of her apron. The old woman stared at her. My daughter, you do not know me. Hunger does not need introduction, Mama. I will pay you back. You can pay me by sitting down before you fall down. The woman's mouth softened. What is your name? Nneka. Nneka Bello. Nneka blinked. How did you know my surname? The old woman pointed to the small stitched name above her pocket. Your uniform told me. For the first time that morning, Nneka laughed. She carried the bread and water toward a bench near the lobby. The old woman walked beside her. Why are you here alone? Nneka asked. My car developed a fault after my appointment. I took another ride here because I had a meeting. My people will find me. Your phone is dead. They know where I am supposed to be. Nneka nodded. Nothing sounded impossible about it. Lagos could turn one small delay into a family emergency. She did not ask further questions. The woman sat. Nneka opened the nylon. That was when Halima saw them. Her face changed before she reached the bench. What is going on here? Nneka stood at once. Ma. She needed something to eat before taking her medicine. Halima looked at the elderly woman, then at the bread. And why is that your business? She was feeling weak. This is not a charity center. The old woman raised her head. Young lady, mind how you speak. Halima's eyes widened. Excuse me. Nneka stepped between them slightly. Ma, please. I bought the bread. She will eat and leave. Halima stared at Nneka as if a mop had spoken back. You bought it? Yes, Ma. With whose money? My money. Halima laughed. It was a loud laugh, the kind designed to gather witnesses. 2 guests turned. A receptionist looked up. Whale emerged from the service corridor. "What is the problem?" he asked. Halima pointed at Nneka. "Your cleaner has abandoned her post to feed vagrants in the main lobby." Whale saw the elderly woman's wrapper. He saw the contract review guests entering through the far doors. He made a decision in less than a second. "Nneka, stand up properly." "I am standing, sir. Do not answer me." "Where did you get that bread?" "I bought it. From salary we have not paid." A male guest joked from nearby. Laughter rose. Nneka felt heat climb her neck. Whale seized the nylon from her hands. "Show me the receipt." "It is in my pocket." "Do not touch anything." "Sir, you asked for." "I said do not touch anything." The elderly woman rose carefully. "She bought the bread. I saw her pay." Halima looked her up and down. "Mama, nobody is talking to you. You are talking about me." Security. Ibrahim Okonkwo came from the desk. He wore a navy uniform with silver strips at the shoulders. His expression was cautious. "Ma, remove this woman and escort the cleaner downstairs." Ibrahim looked at Nneka. "Madam, perhaps we should first check the receipt." Halima's head turned sharply. "Are you giving me instructions?" "No, Ma." "Then do your job." Whale pulled the staff card from Nneka's neck. The cord snapped. The plastic edge scraped her skin. Gasps rose, but nobody moved. "You are suspended," Whale said. "And if there is no receipt, I will report theft." "I have the receipt." "Somebody on your salary cannot afford kindness," he replied. That sentence entered the lobby like smoke. It touched every cleaner standing at a distance. It told them that poverty was not merely lack of money. It was a cage. It meant even goodness required permission from the rich. Nneka bent to retrieve the loaf. Halima struck the nylon aside with her shoe. The bread rolled. Then her heel came down beside Nneka's fingers. "Look at you," Halima shouted. "Ordinary cleaner, feeding street beggars during work. Is this place your family compound?" More phones appeared. The old woman's face became very calm. Too calm. "She bought it for me," she said again. Halima waved toward Ibrahim. "Remove both of them before our real guests arrive." Ibrahim took one step. Then the sound came. Engines. Deep and controlled. Outside the glass doors, a black Mercedes stopped beneath the entrance canopy. A Range Rover pulled behind it. Then another. 4 black SUVs formed a line along the driveway. 2 men in dark suits stepped out before the vehicles fully settled. The receptionist jumped to her feet. Halima pulled her jacket straight. Whale dropped Nneka's staff card. "Mrs. Okafor's people," somebody whispered. Dare Okafor stepped from the first car. He was tall, clean-shaven, and dressed in a charcoal suit, with a white shirt and an emerald pocket square. His face carried the strain of a man who had spent the last 30 minutes calling hospitals and police contacts. He entered the lobby quickly. Halima moved toward him with both hands extended. "Mr. Okafor, welcome to Crestline. We have been expecting." He walked past her. Not around her, past her. His eyes were fixed on the woman in the burnt orange wrapper. "Mummy!" The lobby changed. Nobody spoke. Dare reached Mrs. Lola Okafor and held her shoulders. "Where have you been, your driver?" Said the car stopped. "Your phone was off. We have been looking everywhere." "I came for the meeting," she said. "Your people were late." "Mummy, we called this building. Then perhaps they were too busy throwing away my breakfast." Dare followed her gaze. The loaf lay on the marble. Its nylon was torn. A dusty shoe mark crossed one side. He looked at Nneka kneeling beside it, then at Halima, then at Wale. What happened? Halima's mouth opened. Nothing came. Wale recovered first. "Sir, there was a misunderstanding involving a staff member. We were managing it." Mrs. Lola turned toward him. "You accused her of stealing food she bought for me." "Ma, I did not realize that I have a son with a convoy." Whale swallowed. "No, Ma, I did not realize the circumstances. The circumstances were hunger, she said. The circumstances were a woman helping another woman. Which part required my surname? Nobody answered. Dare bent and picked up the broken staff card. He read the name, Nneka Bello. You bought the bread? He asked. Yes, sir. Why? Nneka looked at Mrs. Lola. She needed to eat before taking her medicine. Did you know who she was? No, sir. Dare looked at the phones surrounding them, at the guests, at the cleaners peeping from the corridor, at Halima, whose bright suit now seemed louder than her voice. He reached into his pocket. How much was it? Mrs. Lola touched his wrist. Do not insult her. Mummy, I only want to pay her back. The bread is not the problem. Mrs. Lola moved closer to Nneka. The older woman's body was small, but the space around her seemed to widen. She picked up Nneka's fallen card from Dare's hand and placed it in Nneka's palm. Tell me something, she said. Nneka hesitated. Yes, Ma. How many people here are still waiting for their salary? Wales' face emptied. Nneka looked at him. Then she looked toward the corridor where the other cleaners stood. Some shook their heads, begging her silently. Do not speak. Some stared at the floor. One woman pressed both hands together, as if praying. Nneka felt the receipt in her pocket. She felt the broken cord of her staff card. She heard Wales' earlier warning. If the contract fails, all 47 of you will go home. She also remembered the woman rubbing cream into chemical-burned fingers. She remembered the colleague who borrowed transport fare. She remembered signing for gloves that did not exist. Nneka inhaled. Almost everybody, Ma. The words were not loud, they did not need to be. Wale stepped forward. That is false. Mrs. Lola did not look at him. How long? Nneka's voice steadied. Some are waiting for this month. Some are still owed overtime from May. Deductions are entering our payslips for things we did not receive. Dare turned to Wale. Is that true? Sir, payroll timing can vary. Contract staff do not always understand processing cycles. Nneka reached into her apron slowly. This time nobody stopped her. She brought out the receipt. Then her phone. I understand numbers, sir. Wale's nostrils flared. Halima spoke quickly. Mr. Okafor, we should take this conversation upstairs. There are guests recording. Mrs. Lola looked at the phones. No. Her answer was sharp. They recorded the humiliation. They can also witness the question. She faced the cleaners. How many of you have unpaid wages or unexplained deductions? For a moment, no hand rose. Fear was stronger than anger when rent was due. Wale folded his arms. You see? Then the woman from the changing room lifted one hand. Slowly. Another cleaner raised hers. A man near the service lift lifted his. Then two more. Within seconds, 19 hands were in the air. Wale stared at them as if betrayal had taken human form. Dare's face hardened. Secure all payroll records connected to this site. Halima forced a smile. Sir, perhaps we should avoid overreacting before facts are established. You were prepared to remove my mother without facts, Dare said. Why have facts suddenly become precious? Halima's smile disappeared. Dare turned to Ibrahim. Preserve the security footage from this morning. Ibrahim nodded. Yes, sir. All angles. No deletion. No overwrite. Yes, sir. Wale took out his phone. Dare pointed at him. Do not call anybody yet. Sir, I need to inform my office. You will inform them after our legal team records the instruction. Wale lowered the phone. Mrs. Lola sat on the bench again. The strength that had held her upright was thinning. Nneka opened the bottle of water. Please drink, Ma. Dare reached for it, but his mother took it from Nneka instead. She drank. Then she looked at the dirty loaf on the floor. Nneka, yes, Ma? Do you still have your lunch money? Nneka hesitated. No, Ma. The admission hurt more than the laughter. Mrs. Lola nodded once. She did not praise her. She did not call her an angel. She simply looked at Dare. Before you write any check, find out why a worker in our building had to choose between transport and feeding an old woman. Dare looked around Crestline's shining lobby. The brass clock, the imported flowers, the floor polished by people whose salaries had not entered. For the first time that morning, the luxury looked cheap. He turned toward Halima and Whale. The contract review is suspended. Whale's face tightened. Sir, please. Not cancelled, Dare said, suspended, until an independent audit is completed. Mrs. Lola nodded. And nobody on that cleaning team is to be dismissed, transferred, or denied shifts for speaking. Halima glanced at Whale. Mrs. Lola saw it. Did you hear me? Yes, Ma, they answered together. Nneka looked at the broken staff card in her hand. She should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt afraid. Because powerful people did not always attack while everyone was watching. Sometimes they waited for the convoy to leave. The convoy did not leave immediately. That was the first problem for Whale. Dare ordered. The executive meeting room opened. Mrs. Lola was taken upstairs to eat something fresh and take her medicine. A nurse from the clinic beside the complex checked her blood pressure. It was low, but stable. Nneka stood outside the meeting room with the other cleaners, still holding the broken staff card. Nobody knew whether they were allowed to return to work. Nobody knew whether they were already in trouble. The building continued around them as if nothing had happened. Lift doors opened. Residents crossed the lobby. Coffee machines hissed. Somewhere upstairs, a child laughed, then disappeared behind a glass door. But among the cleaners, silence had settled heavily. The woman who raised her hand first touched Nneka's elbow. You spoke well, she whispered. I only answered a question. You answered the question all of us were afraid to answer. A male cleaner shook his head. Whale will deal with us. Mrs. Okafor said nobody should touch our jobs, the woman replied. The man laughed bitterly. Powerful people speak. Small people suffer later. Nneka could not tell him he was wrong. At 10:26 a.m., Ibrahim came from the executive floor. Mr. Okafor wants to speak with Nneka. Every face turned toward her. Nneka followed him into the lift. As the doors closed, Ibrahim looked at the red scrape on her neck where the card cord had snapped. I am sorry, he said. She looked at him. For what? For standing there. You did not throw the bread. I also did not stop them. Nneka said nothing. The lift climbed. Ibrahim pressed his lips together. Madam Halima gives the orders. If I refuse, she can remove me from the site. You nearly removed an old woman from the building. I know. His voice was low. That was all. When the doors opened, Nneka stepped out without comforting him. Guilt was not the same as repair. If Ibrahim wanted forgiveness, he would have to do more than confess in a lift. The meeting room was colder than the lobby. A long glass table occupied the center. On one wall, a screen displayed the Crestline logo. Bottled water stood in perfect rows. Nobody had thought to invite the cleaners into this room before. Dare sat at the head of the table. Mrs. Lola sat beside him, now holding a cup of tea. A woman from legal services typed on a laptop. Another man introduced himself as an external auditor from Convoy Compliance Partners. Halima and Whale sat at the opposite end. Whale had removed his scarlet tie. The change did not make him look humble. It made him look ready for war. Nneka, please sit, Dare said. She sat in the nearest chair. Whale cleared his throat. Sir, before this proceeds, I must object to the presence of an employee who is subject to disciplinary review. Mrs. Lola looked at him. For buying bread? For leaving her duty post, creating a disturbance and making unverified allegations. Nneka's fingers tightened beneath the table. Dare glanced at the legal officer. Has any disciplinary notice been issued? No, sir. Then she is not under review. Whale leaned forward. ClearPath has its own internal process, and ClearPath operates under our contract, Dare said. A contract that includes wage protection and anti-retaliation provisions. Whale smiled faintly. Of course, we welcome transparency. Mrs. Lola placed her cup down. People who welcome transparency do not normally accuse a woman of theft before checking her pocket. Whale's smile vanished. The auditor opened a folder. We will need the payroll register for all 47 workers assigned to Crestline for the last 12 months. Bank transfer evidence, signed payslips, overtime approvals, PPE issue logs, training attendance, staff complaints, warehouse movements, subcontractor invoices. Whale nodded. That is extensive. It is meant to be. There are confidentiality concerns. The contract allows it. Halima shifted in her seat. What exactly is being investigated? A customer service incident or ClearPath's financial records? Dare answered both. Sir, I must say this. The lobby incident has been exaggerated because of who Mrs. Okafor is. Had she been an unknown woman? Mrs. Lola lifted one hand. Finish that sentence. Halima stopped. The room went silent. Mrs. Lola's eyes did not leave her face. Had I been unknown? What? Halima looked at Dare, then at the legal officer. I only meant the event might not have attracted this level of attention. That is exactly the problem, Mrs. Lola said. Dignity should not require recognition. Nneka felt the words enter her slowly. Dignity should not require recognition. Wale tapped his fingers against the table. Ma, nobody disputes that. But there is also the issue of staff discipline. A facility like Crestline has standards. Does the standard include stepping on food? No, Ma. Does it include calling an elderly visitor a vagrant? No, Ma. Does it include accusing a worker of theft without checking a receipt? Wale's jaw tightened. No, Ma. Good. Then we know where to begin. The auditor turned to Nneka. You said deductions appeared for uniforms, training, gloves, and transport. Do you have payslips? Some, sir. Why only some? They do not always give us. Sometimes we only see the amount in our bank. Do you have bank records? Yes. Records of your hours? Nneka took out her phone. Yes. Wale gave a short laugh. Personal notes are not payroll evidence. The auditor looked at him. They are not conclusive. They are still relevant. Nneka opened the notes. She explained the system she had created. Date, arrival time, official start, end time, break taken, overtime instructed, materials received, any incident. The auditor scrolled through 3 months of entries. You kept all this yourself? Yes, sir. Why? Because when I complained, they said I was confused. The auditor nodded. Confusion is easier to claim when there is no record. Wale crossed his arms. Anybody can type dates into a phone. Nneka looked at him. I also sent some to myself by email every Sunday. The email dates cannot be changed easily. The auditor looked up. Wale's face stayed still, but one muscle near his mouth moved. Dare saw it. Preserve her work email and personal submissions, he told the legal officer. Yes, sir. Wale leaned back. For the first time, he understood that the cleaner he had called ignorant had built a timeline, not a perfect one, but enough to point investigators toward the truth. At 11:42 a.m., the meeting ended with written instructions. No deletion of records, no dismissal, no transfer, no reduction of shifts, no direct contact with witnesses except through the approved process. The audit team would begin immediately. Wale signed. Halima signed. Dare signed. Mrs. Lola added her initials beneath the witness line. Nneka was allowed to leave. The moment she stepped into the service corridor, her phone rang. Unknown number, she answered. Hello? A man's voice said, Do not come back to the cleaning floor today. Who is this? ClearPath Human Resources. What is your name? The line went quiet. Then the man said, You are placed on administrative suspension for abandoning your assigned post. Nneka stopped walking. Mr. Okafor said nobody should reduce our shifts. This is not retaliation. It is normal procedure. I have not received a letter. It will be sent. Will I be paid during suspension? The man disconnected. Nneka stared at the screen. At 11:47, an email arrived. Subject: temporary administrative hold. The letter said she was suspended pending review of unauthorized movement from her work zone and possible misconduct involving a visitor. It did not mention pay. She walked back toward the meeting room, but the door was closed. Dare and his mother had moved to another floor. The legal officer was gone. Halima appeared at the far end of the corridor. She walked slowly this time. No audience. No phones. You see, Halima said, a convoy can enter and leave. You will still return to your level. Nneka held up the phone. This is against the instruction. Halima shrugged. Clearpath is your employer, not Mr. Okafor. He owns the building. He does not own your contract. Nneka stepped closer. Did you tell them to suspend me? Halima smiled. Be careful. Accusing management without evidence is another offense. She entered the lift. The doors closed. Nneka stood alone. The building's air conditioning blew against the scrape on her neck. Cold, clean, merciless. By noon, her access card had stopped working. Ibrahim found her at the staff entrance. He tested the card twice. Red light. I am sorry, he said. Again. He looked ashamed. They disabled it from the system. Nneka removed the card from the reader. I need my bag from the changing room. I will bring it. I can collect it myself. The door will not open for you. Nneka looked through the glass at the lobby she had polished that morning. Guests crossed it freely. The bread stain had already been cleaned. Nothing remained of the humiliation except videos on strangers' phones and a red mark on her skin. Ibrahim brought her bag. Her phone charger was missing. So was the small notebook where she had copied several supply codes by hand. Where is my notebook? This is what they gave me. Who entered my locker? I do not know. Nneka looked at him. He looked away. Outside, the midday sun pressed down on Lagos. The convoy was gone. Nneka had only enough money to take one bus. She walked from Crest Line to the main road, saving the fare for the longer part of the journey. Every step made the morning feel less real. An elderly woman, a loaf, black SUVs, a promise of protection, a disabled access card. By the time she reached home, her feet were swollen. Her room was on the upper floor of a weathered building in Ajage. The corridor smelled of fried pepper and damp concrete. A generator coughed somewhere behind the compound. Nneka unlocked her door. The room contained a bed, a plastic wardrobe, a table, 2 chairs, and a standing fan that worked only when the power agreed. She placed her bag on the chair. Then she sat on the edge of the bed. Her phone rang. Her cousin's name appeared. Nneka answered. My sister, how are you? I wanted to remind you about the money for the clinic. Nneka closed her eyes. I remember. They said I should come on Friday. Are you sure? You sound tired. I am all right. You are managing. I am managing. After the call, Nneka checked her account. 1,350 naira. Her salary was already late. Now her shifts were suspended. She opened the email from Clearpath again. Possible misconduct involving a visitor. The words were carefully chosen. They did not call the suspension punishment. They called it procedure. Whale understood something many employers understood too well. Cruelty did not always arrive shouting. Sometimes it arrived in formal English. At 3:18 p.m., another message came. Manda Territory Staff Confirmation. All Crestline cleaners were instructed to report to Clearpath's office the following morning to sign updated records confirming receipt of wages, transport allowance, uniforms, protective equipment, and training. Nneka called the woman from the changing room. Did you see the message? Yes. Do not sign anything you did not receive. My sister Whale said anybody who refuses will not continue when the new contract starts. He cannot do that. Cannot is different from will not. Nneka had no answer. That evening, Dare sat in his office on Victoria Island, reading the first document the audit team had pulled. ClearPath's monthly invoice showed that every cleaner at Crestline had received complete salary and transport allowance by the 25th day of the previous month. Dare looked at the attached approval. His company had paid ClearPath on the 20th. He turned to the head of procurement. When did we last interview any of the contract workers directly? The man adjusted his glasses. We survey service quality quarterly. That was not my question. We do not usually interview vendor employees. It can blur the employment relationship. Do we verify that wages were paid? We require signed payroll confirmation. Signed by whom? The contractor. Dare leaned back. So the contractor confirms its own compliance. There are bank schedules. Have we checked the schedules against actual worker accounts? The procurement head hesitated. Not routinely. Dare closed the file. On the wall behind him hung a framed statement about people-first leadership. He had approved it himself. At that moment, it looked decorative. Mrs. Lola sat across from him, watching. You wanted to give Nneka money, she said. I still do. Why? Because she helped you. That is gratitude. Not justice. Dare rubbed his face. She should not suffer for doing the right thing. Then do not make her the only person who benefits. He looked at his mother. You heard them. 19 people raised their hands. 19 were brave enough to raise them. Dare looked back at the invoice. How did you know to ask about salary? Mrs. Lola took a slow breath. Her face. What about it? When you offered to repay the bread, she was embarrassed, not proud. Embarrassed. A person with money troubles knows the exact weight of every note she spends. Dare was quiet. His mother continued. And when Whale said somebody on her salary could not afford kindness, the other cleaners did not look surprised. They looked familiar. Dare turned to the head of procurement. Freeze all remaining payments to ClearPath pending legal review. Yes, sir. Notify the auditor that retaliation may already have started. Already? Dare showed him the suspension email Nneka had forwarded to the legal officer. His expression changed. They moved quickly. People move quickly when they are afraid of records. At 7:02 the next morning, 46 cleaners stood outside ClearPath's office in Ogba. Nneka was not invited. Whale arrived in a white SUV. He stepped out wearing a cream kaftan and dark sunglasses. No bright tie, no public anger. Inside the training room, sheets of paper had been placed on every chair. Whale stood before them. My people, there has been confusion. Nobody replied. He removed his glasses. Some outsiders are trying to use one small lobby incident to destroy this company. If ClearPath loses Crestline, all of you lose work. I do not lose alone. The workers shifted. Whale pointed at the papers. These forms simply confirm what our records already show. Salary paid, transport paid, uniform issued, training completed, sign and we move forward. A man raised his hand. Sir, the transport did not enter. Whale smiled. Then perhaps you forgot the earlier payment. It did not enter. Whale's smile disappeared. Are you calling me a thief? No, sir. Then sign. The woman from the changing room looked at the form. It listed 2 safety courses she had never attended. She raised her hand. Sir, what if somebody does not want to sign? Whale rested both hands on the table. ClearPath has many sites, banks, hotels, hospitals, warehouses. A person who is not loyal may find that no supervisor wants her. The threat entered the room quietly. Nobody needed it explained. One by one, pens began to move. Not because the statements were true, because hunger could sign a lie. At 8:13, Nneka received a photograph of the form. The woman had taken it beneath the table. Nneka forwarded it to the audit team. Then she opened a new note. July 15, 8:13. Workers pressured to sign confirmation forms after audit began. She attached the photograph. At 8:26, a reply arrived from the auditor. Thank you. Preserve the original message. Do not confront anyone. Nneka stared at the words. For the first time since her suspension, she felt less alone. But Whale was not the only person cleaning his records. At Crestline, Halima sat in her office closing complaints. A staff member had reported that cleaners ate beside the waste area. Closed. Facility layout issue resolved. Another had reported that a cleaner fainted after working with bleach without a mask. Closed. Employee had undisclosed health condition. Another complained that service staff were prohibited from using the staff lift during morning traffic and forced to carry equipment up 2 floors. Closed. Misunderstanding of movement protocol. Halima changed the dates. She removed attachments. Then she deleted an email in which Nneka had asked for a written copy of Crestline's Dignity at Work policy. A notification appeared. Archive complete. Halima frowned. She called Ibrahim. Come to my office. He arrived 5 minutes later. Ma? Who authorized the archive of yesterday's camera? Mr. Okafor. Delete the duplicate copies after legal collects the main one. We do not need videos circulating. Ibrahim's face stayed neutral. Legal said all copies must remain. I am telling you what protects this building. Ma, the instruction was written. Halima leaned back. You nearly lost control of the lobby yesterday. Do not add insubordination. Ibrahim's hand tightened behind his back. Yes, Ma. Go. He left. In the security room, he opened the camera log. The main lobby footage had been copied to the legal drive. A second automatic copy remained on the local backup server. Halima had requested deletion verbally, no written order. Ibrahim stared at the screen. Then he remembered Nneka kneeling near the bread. He remembered his own step toward her. He had told himself he was only following an instruction. That excuse sounded smaller in an empty room. He exported the footage to the protected incident archive and placed a hold on overwrite. For the first time, he did more than feel sorry. At noon, the audit team discovered that the PPE issue register contained signatures from workers who had not been at Crestline on the listed dates. 2 signatures were identical. Not similar. Identical. The auditor enlarged them on his screen. Copy and paste. At 1:40 p.m. ClearPath submitted its payroll file. The bank schedule showed payments to 47 accounts. At 2:05, the auditor compared the account numbers with the workers' verification forms. 7 account numbers belonged to nobody on the cleaning team. 3 accounts repeated under different names. 1 account received the transport allowance for 11 employees. The account holder was a company called WN Hygiene Solutions. The initials were not subtle. Wole Nwosu. At 2:17, the audit team requested warehouse movement records. At 2:23, Whale received the request. At 2:29, he called Halima. They are digging beyond payroll. Halima lowered her voice. You said your books were clean. They were clean enough for normal review. This is no longer normal. What did you expect after your performance in the lobby? My performance. You stepped on the bread in front of cameras. You accused her of stealing. Whale breathed through his nose. We will not survive by blaming each other. Halima looked at her office door. What do you need? Access to the basement lockers tonight. Why? There is stock that must be found. Halima understood. Her face changed. Do not involve me in anything criminal. Whale laughed softly. You have been closing complaints for 8 months. Do not suddenly wear white. The line went dead. That evening, 2 sealed cartons marked CL317 passed through Crestline's loading bay. The camera above the service gate recorded the trolley. It recorded the store assistant pushing it. It recorded the time, 9:46 p.m. The man used a temporary access code issued from Halima's office. The cartons were placed inside a storage recess, beside the lockers formerly assigned to Nneka and 2 other cleaners. At 7:10 the next morning, Whale arrived with 3 supervisors. At 7:24, he announced that missing chemicals had been discovered. At 7:31, he sent a formal report to the audit team. Subject: Mysterial theft linked to suspended employee. By 7:40, Nneka Bello was no longer merely the cleaner who bought bread. She was the woman ClearPath claimed had stolen supplies worth 684,000 naira. Nneka learned about the accusation from a voice note. The woman from the changing room sent it at 7:52 a.m. My sister, hope no problem. Whale came with supervisors. They said they found chemicals near your old locker. They are saying you have been stealing. Please be careful. Nneka listened twice. Then she sat down on the edge of her bed. For a few seconds, the room became completely still. No generator, no voices in the corridor, no traffic beyond the window. Only the blood beating near her ears. 684,000 naira. The figure was large enough to frighten anybody. Large enough to make a cleaner look greedy. Large enough to turn kindness into strategy. She opened her notes. CL317. Moved through the loading corridor on July 14 at 8:19 a.m. She had written it before the bread incident. Before the audit. Before anybody had reason to believe she would be accused. Nneka forwarded the note and its email timestamp to the auditor. Then she called him. Sir, those cartons were already being moved yesterday morning. Where did you see them? Near the loading corridor. Who was moving them? The store assistant and 2 men. Did you take a picture? No, sir. Do not worry. Your note gives us a direction. Stay available. Sir, can they arrest me? We are not the police. ClearPath can make a report. If anyone contacts you formally, do not lie and do not sign what you do not understand. We will notify legal that the allegation emerged after the preservation order. Nneka swallowed. Thank you, sir. After the call, fear returned. Advice did not remove fear. A person could know she was innocent and still fear a uniform at the door. At 9:05, Dare received Whale's report. He read the first paragraph, then stopped. It described Nneka as a disgruntled suspended cleaner who may have cultivated contact with senior stakeholders to avoid detection. Dare read the line again. Cultivated contact. That was how Whale described buying bread for a hungry woman. He called the auditor. Is there evidence? Only the discovery location and an internal stock list. We are checking timestamps. Why was the area not sealed after the audit began? It should have been. Dare called Halima. Who had access to the basement after the records hold? Security and essential operations. Was Nneka's locker sealed? No, her access had been disabled, so she could not enter. Not through her card. Was there forced entry? Not that I know. Then how did stolen items appear beside a place she could not access? Halima inhaled. Sir, I am not conducting the investigation. You authorized a temporary loading access code last night. Silence. Dare looked at the screen in front of him. Why? A late stock movement. Whose request? The warehouse team. Name. Halima hesitated. I need to check. Check before noon. He ended the call. Mrs. Lola sat in the corner of his office reading a printed copy of ClearPath's welfare policy. She looked over her glasses. You sound angry. I am. Be useful, not angry. Dare placed the phone down. They are trying to frame her, then prove it. You make everything sound simple. No, I make it sound procedural. There is a difference. She returned to the document. Dare stared at his mother. At 68, Lola Okafor had the kind of patience that made dishonest people uncomfortable. She did not rush to the ending she wanted. She waited for records to betray the people who created them. At 11:34 a.m., the auditor found the first break. The stock code CL317 had appeared on an outbound gate pass dated July 12. Destination, an external client, authorized by Wale Nwosu. The same stock code appeared on the cartons discovered near Nneka's locker. That alone did not prove the cartons had left Crestline. Codes could be copied. But the loading bay camera showed a white van exiting on July 12 with 3 sealed cartons. Its plate number matched a vehicle registered to WN Hygiene Solutions. Then the July 16 footage showed the same cartons returning on a trolley at 9:46 p.m. The temporary access code came from Halima's office. The store assistant, pushing the trolley, had clocked out at 5:03 p.m., then re-entered as a visitor under a name missing 1 letter. The auditor saved every file. At 12:20, Halima called Wale. They have the gate camera. What camera? The loading bay. You said Ibrahim would handle the backups. I told him to remove duplicate footage. Did he? I do not know. You do not know? Stop shouting. Wale lowered his voice. Listen to me. The stock can be explained as an internal transfer error. Nneka's notes can be fabricated. The workers already signed the confirmation forms. Not all of them. Enough. What if the store assistant talks? He will not. Halima looked through her glass wall. Ibrahim stood in the corridor. Their eyes met. He did not look away. For the first time, Halima wondered whether the security officer had heard more than she intended. At 2:15 p.m., Nneka left her room to buy gari and sachet water. A black Toyota followed her from the junction. At first, she thought it was coincidence. Then it followed her through 2 turns. The driver lowered the window. Nneka Bello. She stopped at a safe distance. Who is asking? Mr. Wale wants to see you. Tell him to call me. He said it is better to speak privately. I have nothing private to discuss. The car moved ahead, then stopped. The passenger door opened. Wale sat inside. He wore dark glasses. Enter, he said. No, he removed the glasses. Do not behave like a child. We can settle this matter. Settle what? The allegation. You created it. Can you prove that? Nneka looked toward the busy road. People passed. A bus conductor shouted a destination. A woman balanced oranges in a tray. Public place. Witnesses. Still, Nneka kept her distance. Wale opened a brown envelope and showed her several notes. 3 months' salary. Full. I will also write a recommendation letter. For what? You will resign voluntarily. You will state that the salary complaints were misunderstandings. The stock matter will disappear. Nneka almost laughed. The offer was too clear, too clean. A way to turn fear into cooperation. What about the others? She asked. What others? The 46 workers. They are adults. So am I. Wale's eyes hardened. You think those rich people care about you? Mrs. Okafor will forget your face. Dare will move to another meeting. The audit will end. Who will employ a cleaner accused of theft? Nneka said nothing. He lifted the envelope. Take sense before pride destroys you. Nneka looked at the money. She thought of rent, clinic fees, transport, food. Then she imagined signing a paper that would turn every unpaid worker into a liar. No, sir. Wale stared at her. Think well. I have thought. You will regret it. Maybe. His face changed. Nneka stepped back. But I will regret signing more. She turned and walked toward the market. Her knees felt weak. She did not look behind her. At the food stall, she bought the smallest measure of gari. Her hands shook while she paid. Back home, she wrote the time, location, vehicle description, and every word she remembered. She did not claim she had recorded him. She had not. She documented the contact while it was fresh and forwarded it to the auditor and legal team. The note was not proof by itself, but when added to the timing of the accusation, it mattered. At 4:40 p.m., Mrs. Lola called Nneka personally. "My daughter." "Good afternoon, Ma. I heard about the chemicals." "Yes, Ma." "Are you safe?" "I think so." "You think?" "Whale came to see me." Mrs. Lola's voice changed. "Where?" Nneka explained. "What did he offer?" 3 months' salary and a recommendation if I resigned. "Did you take it?" "No, Ma." "Good." Nneka was quiet. Then she said, "Ma, I am afraid." Mrs. Lola did not tell her to be strong. She did not say God would handle everything. She said, "Fear is giving you correct information. It is telling you this matter is serious. Listen to it, but do not let it choose for you." Nneka sat beside the window. "Yes, Ma. We can arrange temporary transport and legal support without making it a personal gift. It will be documented as witness protection under the investigation. I do not want anybody to say I am collecting favor. They will say what benefits them. We will document the truth." Nneka thought for a moment. "Ma, if you want to help, protect the other workers first. We are trying. Not only their jobs, their salary. Some borrowed money to come to work." Mrs. Lola paused. "What do you want from this, Nneka?" The question came softly. A different person might have asked for a check, a flat, a permanent appointment. Nneka looked around her small room. She wanted all those things. Wanting them was not shameful. But they were not the answer to what had happened. "I want every worker paid what they are owed," she said. "I want the deductions returned. I want nobody punished for speaking. I want the protective equipment they already charged us for. And I want the complaints to go somewhere Halima cannot close." Mrs. Lola listened. "Anything for yourself?" "The same thing everybody gets." "That is all?" Nneka remembered Ibrahim in the lift. "There is one more thing." "Yes?" "Do not make Ibrahim the only person to blame. He stood there, and that was wrong. But he did not touch us. He asked them to check the receipt. He may know about the camera." Mrs. Lola was quiet. "You are defending a man who nearly escorted you outside?" "I am not defending what he did. I am saying he may still choose to do something right." Mrs. Lola smiled where Nneka could not see. "That is a fair distinction." After the call, Mrs. Lola turned to Dare. "She has asked for nothing personal. That does not mean we should do nothing personal. No, but any opportunity must survive scrutiny." Dare nodded. "I was thinking of offering her a compliance role." "On what qualification?" "She kept better records than our vendor team. That may justify an interview, not an appointment." Dare smiled faintly. "You are hard. I am fair." The next morning, the auditors began individual worker interviews at a neutral office. No Whale, no Halima, no supervisors. The workers were told the conversations would be confidential and that retaliation would breach the contract. Still, fear entered with them. The first 3 said everything was fine. The 4th cried before speaking. The 5th brought photographs of chemical burns. The 6th showed bank alerts that arrived weeks after the payment dates listed in ClearPath's report. The 7th had never received a payslip. By midday, the pattern was undeniable. The wage problem was not delay alone. It was design. ClearPath received complete monthly funding, then distributed partial amounts on different dates. Unpaid balances were moved through 7 unrelated accounts. Transport allowances for 11 workers repeatedly entered WN Hygiene Solutions. Overtime was approved by Crestline, but removed before the workers were paid. The protective equipment budget was worse. ClearPath invoiced Crestline for heavy-duty gloves, respirator masks, waterproof boots, and safety training. Workers received thin, disposable gloves and occasional paper masks. The premium supplies were sold to external clients. The training attendance contained copied signatures. One record listed a worker as attending a chemical safety course on June 2nd. That worker had been admitted to hospital that day. Dare read the findings in silence. He did not ask how Whaley had done it. He asked how Okafor Meridian had failed to see it. The procurement head gave the usual answers. Vendor assurance, signed certifications, quarterly service scores, no formal complaints. No formal complaints, Dare repeated. Halima's office records showed 32 complaints marked closed. The auditor had recovered deleted attachments from the server. One complaint described workers eating beside the waste bay. Another reported a cleaner who fainted after using concentrated bleach without a mask. Another asked why staff were charged for uniforms that remained company property. Each complaint had been closed without independent review. The management incentive plan rewarded Halima's department for maintaining a low, unresolved complaint rate. Dare stared at the figure. 98% resolution. It looked excellent on the dashboard. In reality, complaints had been erased. We designed a reward for silence, he said. The procurement head shifted. That was not the intention. Systems do not care about intention. Mrs. Lola watched her son carefully. This was the lesson she wanted him to learn. A bad leader could exploit a good system. A bad system could make ordinary leaders behave badly. Whale was responsible for theft. Halima was responsible for humiliation and concealment. But Dare was responsible for a company that believed paperwork more than workers. He called legal. Prepare a non-retaliation notice for every vendor employee. Directly from us. Yes, sir. Set up emergency wage support, not charity. Recoverable from withheld contractor payments. Yes, sir. Arrange independent medical checks for anybody exposed to chemicals. Yes, sir. And suspend Halima from complaint administration immediately. The legal officer hesitated. Pending investigation? Pending investigation. Follow process. Dare had learned that anger could point toward justice. It could not replace it. At Crestline, Ibrahim received an email instructing him to attend an interview. Before he went, Halima entered the security room. Her magenta suit was gone. She wore a black dress and carried no tablet. You saved the backup, she said. Ibrahim did not answer. I asked you a question. Yes, Ma. Why? Because the preservation order required it. You work for this facility. I work under security procedures. I made you deputy supervisor. You recommended me. And this is how you repay me? Ibrahim looked at the monitors. You told me to remove an elderly woman without asking what happened. She looked like a trespasser. She was sitting on a bench. Do not become holy now. You took a step toward her. Yes. The word stopped Halima. Ibrahim continued. That is why I saved it. You think the Okafors will protect you? When they finish using your testimony, you will remain ordinary security, maybe. Halima's eyes narrowed. Delete the local archive. No, Ma. Her breath caught. What did you say? No. The room became silent. It was the first direct refusal Ibrahim had given her. He expected anger, threats, dismissal. Halima only looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, You will regret this. Ibrahim nodded. I may regret many things. I already regret the lobby. After she left, he exported the access control logs, showing the temporary code issued from her office. He attached them to the protected incident report. At the audit interview, Ibrahim told the truth. Not a polished truth, not one that made him a hero. He admitted he had obeyed too quickly. He admitted Halima had used the threat of removal before. He admitted he almost escorted Nneka and Mrs. Lola outside. Then he produced the footage. The main lobby video showed the bread, the heel, the broken staff card. The loading bay video showed the cartons leaving on July 12. The service corridor video showed them returning on July 16. The access log connected the return to Halima's office. The auditor asked one question. "Why did you preserve the duplicate?" Ibrahim looked at his hands. "Because I stood there once and did nothing. I did not want to do nothing again." By the 6th day, the evidence had become too large for a private contract review. Mrs. Lola proposed an open vendor accountability session at Crestline. Whale objected through his lawyer. He argued that public discussion would prejudice the investigation and damage ClearPath's reputation. The legal team agreed that criminal allegations should not be tried by spectacle. So they designed the session carefully. No declaration of criminal guilt. No public release of confidential bank details. Only verified contract findings, worker testimony with consent, management accountability, and decisions permitted under the agreement. The session would include the audit team, legal counsel, vendor representatives, affected workers, building management, resident representatives, and the board's welfare committee. The same lobby where Nneka had been humiliated would host the review. Whaley believed he could survive it. He had the signed confirmation forms. He had workers willing to say Nneka created trouble. He had a lawyer. He had spent years speaking the language of compliance. Halima believed she could separate herself from the money. She would claim Whale deceived her. She would call the bread incident a regrettable failure of judgment. She had prepared tears. Nneka received her invitation by email. She read the final line 3 times. "You are invited to provide a statement regarding the events of July 14 and the working conditions at Crestline Galleria." Her stomach tightened. A statement before managers, residents, and cameras. Whale would be there. Halima would be there. The people who had laughed would be there. Her cousin called. "Will you go?" "I do not know." "You must go." "Why?" "Because they already told their story when you were kneeling." "Tell yours while standing." Nneka smiled. "That sounds like something you heard in church." "No, I heard it inside my head." Nneka looked at the broken staff card on her table. Clear tape now held the cord together. She had kept it, not as a symbol of shame, as evidence of where the story started. That night, an anonymous message entered her phone. "We know where you live." No name, no photograph, only words. Nneka stared at them until her breathing changed. She forwarded the message to legal. Within an hour, a documented safety plan was arranged. Transport. A different place to sleep for 2 nights. A contact number. No secret bodyguards appearing from nowhere. No dramatic chase. Just precautions. Fear did not disappear, but it stopped being private. The morning of the public review, Nneka, dressed in a simple cream blouse and dark skirt. She did not wear the deep teal uniform. ClearPath had suspended her. She placed the broken staff card in her bag. Then she opened her notes one last time. Dates, hours, codes, deductions, small facts. People like Whale believed power lived in offices, signatures, and expensive suits. Nneka had discovered another kind. Memory with evidence. At 8:50 m. She arrived at Crestline. A new loaf of bread sat behind the bakery counter. The cashier recognized her and looked away. Workers were directed toward the back row of seats. Mrs. Lola entered at 9:06. She looked at the seating arrangement. Then at the workers. "Move them to the front," she said. Halima, standing near the stage in a pale gray suit, forced a smile. "Ma, those seats are reserved for stakeholders." Mrs. Lola looked at her. "They are the stakeholders." One by one, the cleaners walked from the back row to the front. Their shoes sounded softly on the marble. The same floor they had polished. the same floor where the bread had fallen. Whale entered with his lawyer and 3 boxes of documents. He saw Nneka. He smiled. Not kindly, confidently, as if he still knew something she did not. Then 2 workers who had signed his forms took seats behind him. They avoided Nneka's eyes. The review had not begun, but the battle had. At 9:30 a.m., the brass clock above the lobby chimed once. The conversation stopped. Dare stood behind a narrow lectern placed at the front of the marble floor. No company banner hung behind him. Mrs. Lola had refused it. "This is not a public relations event," she had said. So there were no branded backdrops, no photographers hired by Okafor Meridian, no music, only chairs, documents, workers, and the large screen where Crestline usually advertised luxury apartments. Dare looked across the room. Residents sat on one side. Managers sat on the other. The cleaners occupied the front rows. Some still wore deep teal uniforms. Others had come on their day off in simple clothes. Whale and his lawyer sat at a separate table. Halima sat near the human resources representative. Ibrahim stood beside the security console, not as an enforcer, but as a witness responsible for the footage. Dare adjusted the microphone. 6 days ago, an incident occurred in this lobby involving a visitor, a contract cleaner, and members of Crestline management. During the incident, allegations were raised about unpaid wages, false deductions, and missing protective equipment. Whale's lawyer wrote something. Dare continued. An independent review was opened. Today's session is not a criminal trial. We will not declare anybody guilty of a crime here. We will present verified findings relevant to our contracts, hear statements from affected parties, and announce the actions within our authority. His voice remained controlled. This process also examines our own failures. Okafor Meridian approved vendor compliance based on records that were not independently tested against the experience of workers. That was inadequate. Several heads turned. Executives rarely began by placing themselves inside the problem. Whale leaned toward his lawyer and whispered. Dare stepped aside. The lead auditor approached the lectern. He gave his name, his firm, and the scope of review. Payroll, wage timing, overtime, transport allowances, protective equipment, training, warehouse stock, complaints, access logs, retaliation after the preservation order. He did not use dramatic language. He did not need it. Our preliminary findings show material inconsistencies, he said. ClearPath invoiced and received funds designated for worker compensation and safety obligations. A significant portion of those obligations was not delivered as certified. Whale's lawyer raised one hand. We object to language implying deliberate conduct before our full response has been considered. The auditor nodded. Your objection is noted, I said. Inconsistencies. The records will speak for themselves. The first image appeared on the screen. A ClearPath invoice, 47 cleaners, complete salary, transport allowance, uniform provision, protective equipment, safety training. The auditor displayed the bank transfer from Okafor Meridian to ClearPath, paid in full. Date, June 20. Then he displayed worker bank alerts. Some received part payments on July 6, some on July 11. Some had not received the balance at all. The contractor's certification states that payment was completed by June 25, the auditor said. The account evidence does not support that statement. Whale's lawyer stood. Some workers receive advances, deductions, and staggered settlements based on individual circumstances. The auditor changed the slide. 7 bank accounts in the payroll schedule did not belong to any worker assigned to Crestline. 3 accounts appeared under multiple employee names. 1 account received transport allowances attributed to 11 different workers. Account name: WN Hygiene Solutions. A murmur moved through the room. Whale kept his face calm. His lawyer spoke. WN Hygiene Solutions provides transport coordination. The auditor looked at him. Then we will need the executed service agreement, invoices, trip records, worker consent, and evidence that transport was actually provided. The lawyer sat down. No agreement had been submitted. The next slide showed the PPE issue log. Gloves, masks, boots, training, 47 signatures. The auditor enlarged too. They were identical down to the angle of a final stroke. Copied. He displayed the attendance record of the worker listed at safety training on June 2nd. Beside it was a hospital admission document dated the same day. The woman sat in the front row. She lifted one hand. I was in hospital from morning until night, she said. I did not attend anything. Whale turned toward her. The look was quick, sharp. She saw it. So did everybody else. The auditor invited Whale to respond. Whale stood slowly. He buttoned his jacket. First, I want to state that ClearPath employs hundreds of Nigerians. We have built livelihoods. We have served prestigious clients without scandal. Administrative errors can occur in any growing company. He looked toward the workers. Some of these people are here because one employee encouraged dissatisfaction after she was disciplined. His eyes moved to Nneka. There it was, the story he had prepared. Nneka was not a worker who documented wrongdoing. She was a disgruntled woman seeking revenge. Whale continued. The employee in question repeatedly left her post, challenged supervisors, and kept confidential company information without authorization. Materials worth 684,000 naira were discovered near her assigned locker. Whispers rose again. Several residents looked at Nneka. Whale lifted a folder. We also have signed confirmations from employees stating that wages, transport, and equipment were received. I do not claim our company is perfect, but I reject the attempt to destroy it based on the personal notes of one suspended cleaner. He sat. His lawyer placed copies of the signed forms before the board members. The papers looked official. Names, signatures, dates, statements of full receipt. For a moment, the room shifted toward Whale. That was the strength of documents. Even false ones could stand upright. Mrs. Lola looked at Nneka. Nneka's mouth had gone dry. She could hear her own breathing. Dare invited her forward. Her legs felt heavy. She rose from the front row and walked to the lectern. The screen behind her still showed the words. Materials discovered near assigned locker. She placed both hands on the sides of the lectern. The microphone amplified a small breath. Whale leaned back. Halima watched without expression. Nneka looked at the cleaners. Some looked frightened. Two of the workers who had signed the forms kept their faces down. Nneka began. My name is Nneka Bello. I worked for ClearPath at Crestline. Her voice trembled. She stopped. Nobody laughed. She tried again. I am not here because I am the bravest person in this room. I kept quiet many times. She looked at the workers. When our salary delayed, I complained once and stopped. When we signed for gloves they did not give us, I still signed. When they changed our hours, I wrote it in my phone, but I continued working. Whale's lawyer watched carefully. Nneka opened her bag. She brought out the broken staff card. This broke when Mr. Whale removed it from my neck. She held it up. I bought bread for Mrs. Lola because she was weak. I did not know her surname. I did not know her son would come with cars. I did not know anybody was recording. She placed the card on the lectern. An old woman was hungry. That is all. Her eyes moved to Dare. Mr. Okafor, I am not asking anybody to believe me because a convoy came. Then she turned toward Whale. I am asking you to check the records. The lobby went silent. It was not a clever line she had rehearsed for applause. It was the truth. Nneka unlocked her phone and described the notes she kept. Arrival times, shift instructions, missing gloves, supply codes, deductions, weekly emails to herself. She explained that personal notes were not enough to prove theft or fraud. She knew that, but the dates showed investigators where to look. I wrote CL 317 on July 14 at 8:19 in the morning, she said. That was before the bread fell, before the audit. Before ClearPath said, those cartons were found near my locker. The auditor displayed the email timestamp. July 14, 8:26 a.m. The note existed 2 days before the alleged discovery. Wales' lawyer stood. It proves only that she knew the stock code. Yes, the auditor said. So we checked the stock movement. The screen changed. Loading bay footage. Date: July 12. A white van waited near the service gate. 3 sealed cartons moved into it. The image enlarged. Blue sticker. CL 317. The van left. Registration records connected it to WN Hygiene Solutions. The footage changed. Date: July 16. Time 9:46 p.m. The same marked cartons returned on a trolley. The store assistant pushed them toward the basement. A timestamp ran at the corner of the screen. Wales' face changed for the first time. Only slightly, but enough. The auditor displayed the access log. Temporary code issued from Halima Aze's office at 9:31 p.m. Used at the loading bay at 9:43. Used at the basement door at 9:51. Halima's hands tightened. The human resources representative turned toward her. Dare spoke. Mrs. Ease, why was the code issued? Halima lifted her chin. A warehouse employee requested after-hours access. Name? I do not remember. The system records your approval. I approved many operational requests. Did you verify this one? Did you disclose it when the materials were reported found? I did not connect the two events. Wales' lawyer stood. My client did not personally move those goods. The auditor nodded. That will be a matter for further investigation. For contract purposes, the stock was certified as missing, transported to an external company linked to Mr. Nwosu, returned after the audit opened, and then presented as evidence against an employee whose access had been disabled. Nobody moved. The sentence was long. Its meaning was simple. The evidence had been planted. Nneka looked at Wale. He no longer smiled. The auditor moved to the worker confirmation forms. ClearPath submitted signed statements of complete receipt. We interviewed workers individually. Several said they signed under threat of losing future placement. Wale rose. That is false. The auditor looked toward the front row. Any worker who wishes to speak may do so. Nobody's required. Silence. The forms remained on the table. Wale folded his arms. He had counted on silence before. He counted on it again. A woman in a teal uniform stood, the first worker who had raised her hand in the lobby. She held one of the forms. I signed, she said. Her voice was almost a whisper. Why? The auditor asked. Mr. Wale said if I did not sign, no supervisor at any ClearPath site would take me. Wale pointed at her. I never said that, she flinched. Then she looked at Nneka. Nneka did not tell her to continue. She simply stood beside the lectern. The woman faced the room again. I did not receive transport. I did not attend training. They gave me this uniform after another worker left. They deducted for a new one. A male cleaner stood next. My overtime from May did not enter. Another lifted her hands. Dark marks covered her fingers. These gloves finish before one shift. Sometimes there are none. Another worker placed a payslip on the audit table. They deducted $14,000 for safety boots. I have never received boots. Then another and another. No speeches, no dramatic declarations. Small items began to gather on the table. A torn glove, a bank statement, a deduction slip, a photograph of the waste bay where workers ate. A message threatening loss of shifts, a copied training signature. Whale watched the pile grow. Each object was cheap. Together, they became expensive. His lawyer whispered urgently. Whale did not respond. The auditor displayed the complaint records next. 32 cases marked resolved. He opened one. Worker rest area unavailable. Attachment. Photograph of cartons blocking benches. Resolution. No issue found. Another. Chemical exposure without mask. Resolution. Employee health matter. Another. Supervisor insults and threats. Resolution. Interpersonal misunderstanding. The recovered email trail showed Halima closing the cases herself. Dare turned toward her. Why were attachments deleted? Halima stood. Her face had lost color. I was protecting residents' privacy and preventing unverified claims from circulating. Why did you mark unresolved complaints as resolved? We handled them operationally. Did you speak to the workers? Sometimes. Did you speak to Nneka about her request for the dignity at work policy? Halima's lips parted. The email appeared on the screen. Nneka's message. A polite request for a written policy. Halima's internal reply to a colleague sat beneath it. Do not encourage these contract people to think every correction is a human rights case. Close it. The sentence remained on the screen. Electric magenta. Cobalt blue. Deep teal. Those colors had filled the lobby 6 days earlier. Now there was only black text on white. Halima looked toward Mrs. Lola. Ma, I made mistakes. But I was under pressure to maintain service standards. This building serves high net worth residents. Complaints affect occupancy. Images affect reputation. Mrs. Lola rose. She walked to the bakery counter. Nobody understood at first. The cashier stood frozen behind it. Mrs. Lola pointed toward the floor where the loaf had fallen. Which service standard required you to kick another person's food? Halima's face tightened. I lost my temper. Which occupancy target required you to call a visitor a vagrant? I misjudged the situation. Which brand policy required you to stop Nneka from touching the receipt that proved she paid? Halima's eyes filled with tears. The tears were ready. She had planned them. But Mrs. Lola's voice did not rise. You are sorry because you misjudged my identity, she said. Have you understood that you misjudged my humanity? Halima looked down. Ibrahim dimmed the lights. The main lobby footage began. No edits, no music. The bread in Nneka's hand. Halima approaching. Whale demanding a receipt. The old woman trying to speak. The card snapping. The loaf rolling. The heel striking the nylon. Then the sound. Soft through the speakers, the bread hitting marble. Nobody in the room laughed this time. A resident who had recorded the original scene lowered her phone. The footage ended before the convoy arrived. Mrs. Lola had requested that. The important part was not who came later. The important part was what they did before they knew. The lights returned. Dare invited Ibrahim to speak. He stood near the screen. My instruction that morning was to remove both women, he said. I did not ask enough questions. I took one step toward them. Halima looked at him with anger. Ibrahim continued. I did not touch anybody, but I also did not stop the humiliation. That was wrong. He explained the preservation order. The verbal request to delete duplicate footage. His decision to protect the local archive. Whale's lawyer asked, Are you presenting yourself as a hero? No, sir. Then why should we trust a man admitting he failed his duty? Because I am not hiding the part where I failed. The answer settled heavily. Truth did not always make a person look good. Sometimes that was how people recognized it. The auditor presented the final preliminary calculations. Outstanding wages and overtime. Unlawful or unsupported deductions. Delayed payment compensation under contract terms. Unfulfilled PPE obligations. Medical assessment costs. The exact total remained subject to final verification, but the minimum recoverable amount exceeded 23 million naira. Dare stepped forward. Based on verified contract breaches, Okafor Meridian is suspending Clear Path Facility Services from operations at Crestline, effective today. Whale rose sharply. You cannot remove us without transition. The emergency transition clause applies where worker safety, payroll integrity, or evidence preservation is at risk. My lawyers will challenge this. You have that right. Dare continued. Remaining payments will be held against verified obligations. The matter will be referred to the appropriate labor and investigative authorities. Workers will not be asked to repay emergency support. Cost will be recovered from contract funds where legally permitted. Whale looked around the lobby. He had entered with boxes of documents. Now, every box looked suspicious. 2 security officers approached, but they did not grab him. Ibrahim spoke calmly. Sir, your site access has been withdrawn. You may collect personal property under supervision. Whale looked at Nneka. You think you have won? Nneka met his eyes. No, sir. He almost smiled. Then she added, the workers will win when they are paid. His face hardened. He walked toward the exit. No handcuffs, no cheering. Only the sound of his shoes crossing the marble. The same marble he once controlled. At the Human Resources table, Halima received a written suspension pending disciplinary review. Her complaint handling access had already been removed. She read the first page. Then she looked at Dare. I gave 7 years to this building. Dare's expression remained steady, and the workers gave their bodies to keep it clean. She gathered her handbag. On the way out, she passed Nneka. Her eyes dropped to the broken staff card. For 1 second, anger returned. Then shame covered it. Nneka did not insult her. She did not laugh. She did not block the door. She stepped aside. That simple movement wounded Halima more than revenge would have. Nneka treated her with the dignity Halima had refused to give. After the room settled, Dare returned to the lectern. Removing people is not enough, he said. A system that rewards silence will produce another Whale and another Halima. He announced the corrective measures one by one. Verified payment of all outstanding wages and overtime. Refund of unsupported deductions. Compensation for payment delays under the vendor agreement. Independent medical checks for chemical exposure. A proper staff restroom, restored within 7 days. Direct payslip access before payment date. A worker hotline outside building management. Quarterly confidential interviews with vendor employees. Random verification of bank payments. A revised management scorecard that measured complaint quality and resolution, not merely low complaint numbers. Anti-retaliation protection. Preservation of service length during contractor transition. The new provider would be required to offer eligible workers continued placement at no lower basic wage. Then he turned toward Nneka. We would also like to offer Ms. Bello a position in our facilities compliance team. Applause rose. The invitation was everything Wool had accused her of seeking. A direct appointment. Public, emotional, unexamined. She walked back to the lectern. Sir, thank you. The applause softened. But I cannot accept it like this. Dare looked surprised. Why? Because people will say I got the job for buying bread for your mother. Mrs. Lola watched her. Nneka continued. I have a national diploma. I have some record experience. I am also taking a payroll course. Let me apply. Let me be assessed. If I qualify, employ me. If I need training, show me. The room became quiet again. And let the other workers also see the training opportunities, she added. Not only me. Dare looked at his mother. Mrs. Lola did not nod. She did not need to. He understood. Fair, he said. The role will go through assessment. You will receive no special score. Nneka smiled. That is what I want. Dare faced the workers, and a paid training pathway will be opened to all eligible facility staff. This time, the applause felt different. Not the applause given to a rescued poor woman. The applause given to a worker who had refused to exchange dependence for dignity. At the back of the room, the bakery cashier began to cry quietly. Nobody noticed. She picked up a fresh loaf from the shelf. Then she carried it toward the front. Nneka saw her coming. The cashier stopped before Mrs. Lola. "Ma," she said, "I am sorry." Mrs. Lola looked at the loaf. "Why? I pushed you aside before the cleaner helped you." "Did you know my card failed because of a security lock?" "No, Ma." "Did it matter?" The cashier lowered her head. "No, Ma." Mrs. Lola accepted the loaf. "Then do better with the next person whose card fails. Not with me. With the next person." The lesson moved beyond the convoy. Outside Crestline, journalists waited near the gate. The company released a factual statement confirming a vendor suspension and worker remediation process. It did not call the allegations proven crimes. It did not name private workers without consent. It did not claim the story was a miracle. Inside, the cleaners formed a line to verify their bank details for emergency payment. Some were smiling. Some were still suspicious. Years of fear did not disappear in one meeting. Nneka sat at a small table with the auditor. He returned her phone after copying relevant records with written consent. "You did good work," he said. "I only wrote what happened." "That is good work." She looked toward the doors where Whale had exited. "Will they arrest him?" "I do not know." The honest answer surprised her. "The authorities will decide based on evidence and law. Our role is to preserve the records and recover what the contract allows." Nneka nodded. Real justice moved slower than a convoy. But it left better footprints. The first emergency payments entered that evening. Not all at once. The payroll team worked through bank details, mismatched names, and accounts that had been closed. By 8:17 p.m., 29 workers had received alerts. By the following afternoon, 44 had received verified payments. The remaining 3 collected through corrected accounts after identity checks. Nobody handed out cash in the lobby. Nobody stood on a stage holding oversized checks. The money entered quietly. That was how wages should enter. Nneka received the balance owed to her, including overtime and unsupported deductions. She stared at the alert for a long time. It was not a gift. It was not a reward for kindness. It was money she had already earned. She sent her cousin the clinic fee first. Then she paid rent. After that, she bought food. Real food. Not because a billionaire had rescued her, but because records had forced a system to return what it took. The investigation continued after the public review. ClearPath's lawyers challenged the contract suspension. Okafor Meridian's lawyers responded with access logs, payroll discrepancies, and the preserved footage. Labor officers requested additional documents. The external company linked to the missing stock was examined. Workers submitted statements with legal support. The process lasted months. Some allegations were confirmed. Others remained under review. Whale did not disappear into prison before sunset. Life was not that obedient, but his access to Crestline was gone. ClearPath lost the renewal. Several clients requested independent checks of their own contracts. The company was required to account for unpaid wages and diverted funds. Whale's reputation, once built on polished presentations, was now tied to questions he could not dismiss by lowering his voice. He learned that records could travel farther than influence. Halima's disciplinary hearing took place 2 weeks later. The panel reviewed her emails, complaint closures, access code approval, and conduct in the lobby. She was allowed to respond. She brought a lawyer and submitted a written apology. The panel found that she had humiliated visitors, retaliated against a worker, suppressed complaints, and failed to follow basic verification procedures. Her employment ended under Crestline's disciplinary policy. She was not ordered to kneel. She was not slapped. She was not paraded through social media by the company. Instead, the official record corrected the false misconduct note placed against Nneka. Written apologies were sent to the affected workers. Halima's closed complaints were reopened. Her management reports were amended to show that the celebrated 98% resolution rate had been unreliable. The correction remained in the system. That was the consequence she feared most. Not a public insult. A permanent record that refused to flatter her. On the day she collected her final belongings, Halima wore a plain brown dress. No electric magenta suit. No sharp heels. She carried a cardboard box from her office to the lobby. Nneka happened to be there for a compliance assessment. They saw each other near the bakery. Halima stopped. For one uncomfortable moment, both women remembered the bread on the floor. "You are happy now?" Halima asked. Nneka considered the question. "No." Halima looked surprised. "My colleagues are being paid," Nneka said. "That makes me relieved. Happiness is another thing. You ruined my career." Nneka's voice stayed calm. "I did not write your emails." Halima tightened her grip on the box. "You could have accepted my apology. You did not apologize to me. I apologized in writing. You wrote to the panel." Halima looked away. Nneka could have continued. She could have returned every insult. Ordinary cleaner, street beggar, village behavior, know your level. All of them waited at the back of her tongue. She let them die there. "The exit is open," Nneka said. Then she stepped aside. Halima walked through the same main doors she had guarded, as if dignity belonged only to wealthy people. No one laughed. No one raised a phone. That was not mercy without accountability. It was proof that Nneka had not become what wounded her. Ibrahim faced his own review. The panel found that he had failed to challenge an improper removal order early enough, but had not used force, and had later preserved critical evidence. He received a formal warning and mandatory training instead of dismissal. Some people criticized the decision. They said he should have been fired. Mrs. Lola disagreed. "Accountability must recognize both harm and repair," she said. "Otherwise, why should anyone correct himself after failing?" Ibrahim attended training on lawful instructions, dignity protection, de-escalation, and whistleblower preservation. On his first week back, a delivery rider entered the wrong corridor. A resident shouted at him and demanded that security drag him outside. Ibrahim did not obey blindly. He asked what happened. He checked the delivery note. He guided the rider to the correct entrance. Small action. Different ending. 7 days after the review, the chemical cartons were removed from the staff room. Carpenters repaired the benches. A broken air vent was replaced. Lockers were cleaned. A water dispenser appeared in the corner. The workers chose 2 representatives to attend quarterly vendor meetings. Complaint numbers were no longer treated as proof that management was successful. Instead, the company tracked whether complaints were investigated, whether workers were protected, and whether solutions lasted. Dare attended the first meeting without announcing himself in advance. He sat beside a cleaner whose name he had never known. That fact embarrassed him. There were 47 people on the contract. Yet, before the bread incident, he had known only a vendor number and a monthly cost. He opened the meeting. "I used to believe that a signed report meant a job was done," he said. "Now I know a signed report only means somebody signed." A worker laughed. Dare smiled. Then he asked each person to introduce himself or herself. He wrote the names down. Leadership changed slowly. sometimes one name at a time. Nneka applied for the facility's compliance assistant role. The process was exactly what she requested. Written assessment, spreadsheet exercise, document verification task, panel interview. No special interview with Dare. No secret instruction to pass her. She scored well in record analysis and incident chronology. She struggled with one section on procurement terminology. Instead of pretending she knew, she said so and explained how she would verify the answer. The panel noted the honesty. She ranked second after the first assessment. For a moment, Dare wanted to overrule the score. Mrs. Lola stopped him. Did she ask for fairness or favor? Fairness, then respect her. The highest-ranked candidate later accepted another offer. Nneka advanced through the documented process, completed a short compliance course, and was offered the role on 6 months probation. Her salary improved. Not enough to make her rich, enough to breathe. Her first week in the new role was awkward. Some managers treated her as Mrs. Okafor's favorite. Some cleaners thought she had crossed to the other side. One supervisor tested her by sending incomplete records and asking her to approve them quickly. Nneka returned the file. Supporting documents are missing. Everybody knows the service happened. Then evidence should not be difficult. The supervisor sighed. You people who just enter office like to show power. Nneka looked at the mop cart passing in the corridor. I entered office from the cleaning floor. I know what power without records can do. She refused to approve the file. Later, she helped redesign the wage verification checklist. It required more than the contractor's signature. Random bank confirmation, worker consent, overtime cross-check, proof of equipment issue, a private channel for disputes. The checklist was not exciting. Nobody would make a thumbnail from it. But 1 year later, no Crestline facility worker had gone more than 2 working days beyond the agreed salary date without an automatic escalation. That was value, not noise. Mrs. Lola visited Crestline every month during the transition. Sometimes with Dare, sometimes without him. She wore simple wrappers and low shoes, though her driver now remained closer. Employees recognized her. They greeted her loudly. She answered each person. But one afternoon, she entered quietly and walked to the bakery counter. The same cashier was there. The young woman stood straighter. Good afternoon, Ma. Good afternoon. Mrs. Lola selected 1 loaf of bread and 1 bottle of water. She paid in cash. Then she asked where Nneka was. Nneka came down from the compliance office wearing a navy skirt, a white blouse and an identity card on an unbroken cord. She saw Mrs. Lola holding the loaf. Mama, hope no problem? Big problem. Nneka became serious. What happened? Mrs. Lola opened her handbag and brought out 3,850 naira. Nneka stared. What is this? My debt. Nneka laughed. After 3 months? A proper accountant does not ignore liabilities. You already paid for many things. I did not pay for my bread. Nneka shook her head. Keep it. Mrs. Lola pushed the notes toward her. No, the company repaired its debt. This one is mine. Nneka accepted the exact amount. No extra money, no hidden check. Mrs. Lola handed her the loaf. Come and eat with me. They sat at the same bench. The lobby moved around them. Residents passed. Cleaners pushed trolleys. Security officers checked entries. The brass clock marked 1:13 p.m. Mrs. Lola tore the bread into 2 equal pieces. She handed one to Nneka. That day, she said, you did not know my name. Nneka opened the water. Mama, hunger does not ask for surname. Mrs. Lola smiled. It should be written somewhere. It is common sense. Common sense is not as common as people claim. They ate. Dare arrived 10 minutes later with 2 executives. He stopped when he saw them. Mummy, we have a meeting. Mrs. Lola checked the clock. You are early. I am on time. You are early because I said 1:30. It is 1:23. Then sit. Dare looked at the bench. There was little space. Nneka shifted. He sat. One of the executives moved as if to find another chair. Mrs. Lola pointed to the opposite bench. Sit there. Soon, the chairperson of the welfare committee, the CEO, two executives, and a former cleaner were eating bread in the main lobby. People noticed. Nobody took out a phone. The moment was too ordinary to become a spectacle. That was why it mattered. A cleaner passed with a trolley. Dare stood to let her through. Good afternoon, Grace, he said. The woman looked surprised that he remembered her name. Good afternoon, sir. After she passed, Mrs. Lola looked at her son. Better Dare smiled. I am learning. No, you are practicing. Learning without practice is decoration. Nneka laughed. Dare shook his head. Mummy, do you correct everybody while eating? Only people who need it. The bread finished. The meeting began. Life continued. Months later, when new workers joined Crestline, they heard different versions of the story. Some said an old woman came to test the staff. That was not true. Mrs. Lola had not planned the card failure, the dead phone, or the hunger. Some said Nneka knew exactly who she was. That was not true either. Nneka had seen only a tired woman whose hand shook. Some said the convoy changed Nneka's life. That was only partly true. The convoy forced powerful people to pay attention, but attention alone would have faded. What changed the outcome were the receipt, the notes, the camera, the bank records, the workers who spoke, and the decision to repair a system instead of rewarding one person. Kindness opened the door. Evidence kept it open. That distinction mattered. There is a dangerous habit in many places. People wait for wealth to reveal itself before they offer respect. They insult the cleaner, then bow when they discover her connection. They ignore an old woman, then smile when a luxury car arrives. They believe dignity works like a membership card. It does not. A person does not become human when a convoy appears. The convoy only reveals who was already looking away. From my own point of view, the strongest moment in this story was not Whale losing the contract, or Halima walking out with a box. It was Nneka refusing a job she had not yet earned through a fair process. She understood something many powerful people forget. A favor can change one life. A fair system can protect hundreds. The lesson is not that every hungry stranger has a billionaire son. Most do not. The lesson is that kindness should not depend on such a possibility. Help should not be a lottery ticket. Respect should not be an investment. And when harm becomes organized through contracts, reports, and silence, kindness alone is not enough. It must grow into documentation, accountability, and repair. The cleaners did not need to be carried on anybody's head. They needed their wages. They needed safety. They needed their complaints heard. They needed managers who understood that a polished floor does not prove a clean conscience. 1 year after the review, Okafor Meridian published an internal labor compliance report for all its facilities. The report did not use Nneka's face. It did not turn her kindness into advertising. Instead, it listed measurable changes. 99% of contractor wages were verified within the agreed payment window. Every facility worker received a digital or printed payslip before payday. Chemical exposure incidents dropped after proper gloves and masks became mandatory. Complaint investigations were sampled by an independent committee. Managers were no longer rewarded for having few complaints. They were assessed on whether people trusted the system enough to report problems. The numbers were not perfect. 2 contractors received warnings. 1 was replaced. A supervisor was disciplined for pressuring workers to change time records. That mattered because reform was not a speech delivered once. It was the repeated decision to notice what powerful people preferred not to see. Nneka sometimes visited other sites to interview cleaners privately. She never began by asking whether management treated them well. That question usually produced fear and polite answers. She asked practical things. What time did your salary enter? Show me the gloves you received. Where do you eat? Who can close your complaint? Can your supervisor see your answer? Details opened mouths. At one warehouse, workers said everything was fine. Nneka noticed that every person looked toward the same supervisor before answering. She asked to speak with them alone. The problem was not stolen wages that time. It was an unofficial rule forcing workers to remain after their recorded shift until the next team arrived. Some waited 40 minutes without pay. The amount per worker looked small. Across months and dozens of workers, it was not small. The company corrected the scheduling rule and paid the verified time. No convoy appeared. No bread fell. No video went viral. The correction still counted. That became Nneka's favorite kind of victory, the kind that happened before humiliation became public. Dare also changed how he visited company properties. He still arrived in expensive cars, because pretending otherwise would have been another performance. But he stopped believing that walking through a polished lobby showed him the building. He visited loading bays, staff rooms, changing areas. He asked workers questions without their managers standing beside them. Once, a contractor placed new boots and masks in a room 10 minutes before his inspection. A cleaner quietly told him the supplies had never been there before. The old Dare might have thanked the contractor for excellent compliance. The new Dare checked delivery dates. The invoice failed. The lesson stayed alive. Mrs. Lola heard about it and laughed. Now you are finally earning that large office, she told him. Dare replied, Mummy, you will never let me rest. Rest after retirement. I am not even 45. Then you have plenty of time to improve. Their teasing did not erase the seriousness of what had happened. It showed that accountability could become culture instead of crisis. And Nneka never forgot the workers who had been afraid to raise their hands. She did not call them cowards. She understood that courage costs more when another person controls your food. That was why the new system did not depend on courage alone. Anonymous reporting, automatic payroll checks, protected interviews, independent review. A good system should not require the weakest person in the room to become a hero before anybody listens. As for Nneka, the convoy did not give her dignity. She had carried it into Crestline long before the first black SUV arrived. It was there when she wore torn gloves. It was there when she spent her last transport money. It was there when she knelt beside the bread. And it was still there when she stood before the same people and asked them not to believe power. Only the records. Because sometimes justice begins with a grand speech. Sometimes it begins with a camera. Sometimes with a payslip. And sometimes it begins with one loaf of bread falling onto a marble floor.